Today on What Went Wrong, we talk about how the shit you go through in a movie creates bonds that last a lifetime. Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and I've shot over 40 feature films. And along for the ride, for the longest amount of time, outside of Jeff Price, would be Trey Bayer. Tell me a little bit about yourself to start with.
Well, like you said, we met in 1995. I was a student at the University of Texas. I was an Air Force cadet at the time. And I did a random, skit for the Air Force detachment. And one of the females that was there, I guess mentioned whatever acting ability she thought I might have, mentioned that to you. You were filming Right Here Waiting. And that was in 1994, 1995. Here we are in 2020, so the rest is literally history.
Today we're going to talk about Right Here Waiting, which was one of my very first feature films. It was shot on an old it was VHS. It wasn't SVHS at the time. It was a script that I'd been working on for a long time, and basically you and I played the same character.
That's right.
And the person that you're talking about, she was a good friend of mine, and I guess you had met through Angel Flight.
Through Angel Flight, which was a sorority type organization affiliated with the detachment at the University of Texas.
And I remember she had actually said something to me, which could be kind of considered, some people might be hurt by, but I actually took to heart and listened to for most of my film career. When I got into film, I started off wanting to be an actor. That was kind of what I was. And one day I looked in the mirror and I was like, well, I'm not going to be the leading man. I'm not the leading man type material. So in order to be the leading man in a film, I'm going to have to make the films myself and put myself in them. But over the years, I started realizing that I had to be behind the camera because that's where I had to put all my focus. But I started
right there
because
you've ever seen him act. He's actually a very good actor, and
I don't have the looks for the leading man type material. And if whether that's true or not, I don't know. But Stephanie would probably be the one that I could blame for that.
You look like a monkey.
When we were talking about it and casting you in that role, she had said, well, Steven Spielberg probably would have loved to have played Indiana Jones, but he knew that he didn't have the look for it. So that harkened on me in my mind, in my mindset at the very least. Well, I was not going to let somebody else play the 40s part of that. So the film itself was about you, a guy that we never really delved into, but he was in trouble with the law and he was on the run.
That's right.
And then he had to leave behind the woman that he loved, who was played by Stephanie. And then he gets in an altercation. And this was actually the very beginning of the coin.
That's right.
As a method of time travel.
Yes.
Somehow you had that in your pocket. And then William Sloan was the hitman that tracked you down and shot you, and then that sent you both back in time to the 1940s, and then I continued to play that role, play that character. I had no money, of course, no money for this film, but there was supposed to be the bar, this 1940s bar. So the only place I had was my apartment, but I had like this little banister or whatever, so that was going to be the bar, but I wanted to be smoky. So I had one of those mammoth smoke bombs. And I said, okay, well, I don't have a fog machine, but I've got this smoke bomb. So I'll use the smoke bomb to get a nice fog, but I'm going to go to the kitchen sink, fill it up with water, get just enough smoke in there, and then I'm going to put the smoke grenade into the water and put it out. I got Jeff over going, no.
Funny thing about those.
I light that sucker up. I start spraying it. Okay, well, that's enough. I go over and smoke still barreling out. Apartment was full of smoke because those things go on 3 to 5 minutes. Full of smoke. Completely screwed up the scene. I had to call the end to it. But
we had a lot of fun on that set. We really talk about trying to learn while you're in the moment. I had no acting experience. I had no formal education in acting. But somehow we managed to navigate through that and learn together. And, that was, you mentioned bonds. And so here we are 25 years later, still I didn't know that I had a passion for acting until I did that. And so you woke that up in me. And after that, I actually went out and sought out an agent because of that. I thought, well, you know what? I'm not great, but I need to hone the skills and hone the craft. And I actually went out, got an agent after that, and then had my first casting. And I said, this is going to be kind of a sign. And I went on another audition and actually got a part after that. And all thanks to you, because you gave me a lot of coaching on that set. I had no clue what blocking was, or memorize your lines, and I had absolutely no clue. But I had a blast doing it. And I think the film, it's still circulating around out there. So I'm sure we can watch it and have a laugh.
Hey, Diane. Sorry I'm late. I seem to have forgotten my keys. Slow.
From an actor standpoint, when just a friend of yours says, "Hey, do you want to be in a movie?" Of course, the first question you ask is,
"Is it a porn?"
Believe me, anytime because that's been my history is, well, what do you do? Well, I make films. What kind of film?
Funny story. When I met, who's now my wife, I was talking to her one of our first conversations, and I was telling her about acting and what I had done some acting in the past, and she's like, "Is it porn?" And so I think that's everyone's. If you're not an established actor or working continuously, which is a myth, if you go to Hollywood or LA, it's the top 1% are working on a regular basis. But anytime you mention, "Hey, I'm an actor," there's kind of this look of, "Oh, what is that exactly?" And so no one really understands from an actor's perspective, I think the reality of it, how hard it is, what you do, what it entails to hone that craft, and to have, and one reason why I work on your sets a lot and why I keep coming back is because you're an actor's director coming from the perspective of being an actor, and you understand the process. And so you always hear actors talk about the process. And I've heard it mentioned several times by a lot of A-list professional actors. You have to allow the actor that ability to be bad on set before you can be good, because you've got to develop that chemistry. You've got to develop those happy accidents that happen in front of the camera. But I think as an actor's director, and also just from a technical perspective, you understand all the mechanics of what it is to shoot a film, from lighting and directing and cinematography. And so it's always been a challenge for me, because I always felt like on these sets, I didn't have any formal training. I didn't go to school to be an actor. I've taken acting classes and I've worked on it over the years. But there was always other actors that I felt were better than me. So I always felt inferior on set. And somehow you were able, as a director, to bring that out of me, to where you let me have that moment where I do suck, where I am horrible. And then you can bring out hey, that actually doesn't suck too terribly bad. I guess we'll go with that and we'll move on to the next one. So you've allowed me a space to actually, leave an indelible mark as an actor on these films for the past 25 years. It's now that I think about it, that's pretty amazing. That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, since this is called "What Went Wrong."
Oh my gosh, so much went wrong.
Oh God, I'm sorry, Brett.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Let's go back to the 1995 version of Right Here Waiting. You as an actor, whether you can remember any of this or not, what do you remember from that set and what you did? And I mean, it was your first time. I'm sure you have no problem me saying you had no idea what you were doing.
I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't, but you let me act in your film. That's great.
What would you say is something that you would have done differently on that set?
If I knew what I was getting into, I think I would have probably done a little bit more research. What I pulled from is I always loved movies, and there were actors that spoke to me. And so what I would do is I would actually pull from what I had seen and sort of replay that in my mind. Well, what would this character from this movie do in this scene at this date and time? And then just sort of go with it. And then you have to listen. If you have a good director, I think listening to that director and then actually taking more notes on the script, going through that script with the director, understanding the direction that they want to go, and the texture of that. When I mean texture, how does this character develop? What is, and it's cliche, but what is that motivation? What is the starting point and the end point of this scene, and what are you trying to convey? And can you get out of your own mind and actually jump into that character? Which for me was the hardest. I'd never done that before, so for me that was the hardest thing, is to actually just shut up and act. And you always had that knack, so I would actually pull from you when I would see you do things, or you would cut, and then you would actually do the scene, say, no, more like this. And I think, to my credit, I could see that and go, okay, and just basically parrot that back out and be able to replicate what you were looking for. So, does that make a good actor? I don't know. I guess I'm still here in your film, so I guess I don't suck too terribly bad. So, but as far as what I would do different, is for any actor that's starting out, is if you really enjoy it, you got to work the craft, find what your strong suit is, get the monologues down, and rehearse as much as possible, and just don't be afraid to say to people, because when people would ask me, I almost felt sheepish when I would say I'm an actor, or I'm working on an acting career, because it felt like it was a cop-out. But no, looking back, I wished I'd been a little bit more profound in making that statement of, hey, I'm an actor, I can do this. I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, but I found a medium that I'm passionate about, and I'm blessed that I've got a guy that can write these amazing films and give me that space to where whatever character he needs me to be, I can step in front of the camera. And there's this, and you hear directors talk about all this time, there's this magic, there's these happy accidents, and there's this camaraderie that happens when it starts to click and it starts to gel, and that energy happens between the actors, and you're in that moment, and then you capture that forever on film. It's pretty magical, to use a cliche. It's fun as hell, man.
What would you say that, how important would you say the motivation for an actor is when it comes to whether they're doing it for the art and for the pleasure of acting, or for the fame and the glory of it?
Well, fame and glory's got to go out the window, because I remember my first conversation I had with my first agent. They asked me the same question: why are you doing this? And I legitimately did it because I enjoyed it. Now, if the fame and glory came along with it, or the money, cool. That's a happy byproduct of it. But if initially you think I want to be an actor or an actress because I'm going to be rich and famous, then the ends don't necessarily justify the means, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You got to have a passion for it, because if you don't have the passion for it, because being on set and working in a film is not glamorous. The Hollywood is glamorous. The award shows are glamorous. Being on set is long hours, long days. Some days you're shooting day for night. Sometimes you're up all hours of the night, and you got to be back early in the morning. You have a 7 a.m. call time, and you've been working until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then so it can be grueling. And you've got to have the passion, because if you don't have the passion, then you're it's not going to translate well in the character. You're gonna take short steps. You're not going to know your lines, and you're at the end of the day you're not going to have fun, and that's going to translate on film.
Yeah, as a director, it's difficult for me sometimes to watch a bad actor and just me kind of think, what's going on? Why are you a bad actor? Nobody should be a bad actor. It's just lying. It's just being somebody. Just be yourself and be a different version of yourself.
Yeah.
And don't consciously act.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of bad acting comes from, is people are intentionally trying to portray this image of themselves, or I want to be a badass, and they try to act.
It's not authentic.
It's just reacting.
It's reacting. Well, and it's not theater either. So theater is obviously a different medium from an actor. I've never done theater, obviously, but from when I've gone to theater, an actor in theater is drawing the audience to them. That's the director's job. So less is more. That doesn't mean be diminutive or diminish who you are. Go as big as you feel the character needs, but then let the director say, okay, that's fantastic. However, we need to tweak it one way or the other. Then you can find that sweet spot of where you need to be, where you have that moment in time with the director and with the other actors where it kind of gels. But you've got to be authentic, and it's okay to not be okay when you're on day one on your first set. you're hearing things that you've never heard before. People are moving lights around. People are kind of short-tempered sometimes because you're on a time crunch, and you know, you're the actor and you're asking questions. But it's okay. Just take a deep breath. Trust in the director that he's going to put you in the right blocking, and that he's going to push you in the direction that he wants you to go. But you have to come with the knowledge of who this person is. And then even the best actors have some movies where they're not great in, but that's all part of growing as an actor. So you just got to get out there and do it. I think from a filmmaker, I don't know if it was Robert Rodriguez who said this, but basically everyone's got 15 crappy movies in them. Just go out there and start filming them and get that out of your system.
Yeah.
I think it's the same for actors. You've got to figure out, you know, it's if you're when you start driving, you're not the best driver from day one. You learn by, or if you're Jeff, you're not the best pilot from day one. You become better as you go. Same with anything. You know, it takes time, it takes the experience, it takes the patience, and it takes the professionalism to learn the craft and allow not just that time to be bad in that moment, in that scene to develop, but throughout your career. Because if you look at yourself day one and then 10 years down the road and then 20 years down the road, if you continue to do it, you're going to improve. You're going to develop that shorthand where you understand where this other actor's coming from, where you understand where that director's coming from, and they can say, hey, remember that one time we did that one scene where we did this? Yep, got it, go. And so that takes time. So relax, lighten up on yourself. You're going to suck, but you're going to be okay.